What is up, Nerf Nation? Today we're going to look at two-part epoxy and how it is used in Nerf and how it is a good adhesive to use to bond two halves of a shell together. So today I'm going to bond this Recon barrel back together. I've shortened it and want to glue it back together, and I want it to be a permanent bond, so I want to use a two-part epoxy. I've already sanded down both halves that I'm gluing back together. You want to at least sand with at minimum a 120 grit, if not something like 80 grit, or even using X-Acto blade to score to give it a good adhesion, something to bond to. It can't be a slick surface because it won't be able to grab a hold of it. The glue needs to it kind of melts as it bonds, and it needs a good rough surface to bond to. So that's why you want to roughen up both sides of whatever you're gluing together. So I'm going to use this X-Acto blade to score around the edges here to give it a little bit better bonding adhesion, because this is such a thin area. I really want to give it that a little something extra to bond to. So this is, like I said, been sanded to 80 grit, but I'm going to go ahead and score around here just to make sure it has the best bond possible. And you want to do obviously both sides of the shell. So I'm going to score this half, and then I'm going to go ahead and score the other half here. Okay, so when you're using a two-part epoxy, you want to try to not get it on your fingers as much as possible. So you squeeze it out and it comes out a little unevenly there, but that's way more than enough, but I guess better too much than not enough. And this is a Loctite 20-minute two-part plastic epoxy. It is a very good epoxy. I highly recommend it. I buy mine at Lowe's. You can get this at Meijer, Lowe's, Walmart, a lot of places. There's other brands that are just as good, but I definitely suggest at least a 24-hour cure time, and 20 minutes is the set time, so how long it takes to dry. But then you need the cure time. I recommend at least a 24-hour, because the longer cure time, the stronger the bond. So we're going to mix up our two-part epoxy here, and you want to make sure you get it together as best as possible and as even as possible. So you really want to mix it up really well, and it's nice to have that 20 minutes so you don't feel rushed. I kind of prefer the 20 to the 5 because it just gives me a little extra time, and I don't feel quite as rushed to get it applied quickly and put it into the right place. You want to be calm when you're doing this and have as much time as you can, so I like that 20 minutes. So I'm going to apply to this half and try not to get it into the seam, because I want to be able to get this apart. So I'm going to try to stay away from the very middle of the piece here, but I'm going to go around and get a good even coat along the edges. And I want to try to keep it from getting on the outside as much as possible, so then I don't have to go back in and sand or get it in there with an X-Acto or whatever to get it out. Once it hardens, it's going to be very difficult to get off, especially in small, hard to reach areas. So to try to keep as much on the surface and on the inside of the piece as possible, but you want to get a good coat on there too. So if you are using a two-part epoxy and you do get some on the outside, a mineral spirits is something nice to have around. I don't have any here today, but I do use that sometimes on like a towel or a cotton swab. So we're going to do this half of the shell, and you want to apply epoxy to both halves, because that's how it gets the best bond. You want to apply epoxy to both sides that you're attaching. You don't want to get too much on there, because it'll just make a mess and you have to clean it off later. So Yeah, I really like a toothpick or something to apply the epoxy with. It allows you to keep the amount of epoxy small. So I like toothpicks are nice to have around. They're cheap and you can just throw them away after you're done. So you're not going to be messing up some nice knife or something like that. And I usually keep a dry one around, and it'll help me clean up the edges after I put it together. So we're going to stick it together. We want to make sure we get it really on there nice and square, because the alignment here is crucial. So we want to make sure we have everything lined up. So I usually apply the pressure by hand first, and then after I get it where I want it and after it's a little bit set, then I clamp it, because I know it's not gonna move at that point. If you clamp it too soon, it'll move around on you and it'll be very difficult to keep in the spot you want. So I like to let it set for about 5-10 minutes and then clamp after that. So just making sure I have it on there and everything's lined up as well as I possibly can get it, because once it's glued on there, it's not coming off. All right, that looks pretty good. Okay, now we're going to take our toothpick here and we're going to clean up any excess they got on the outside, so we keep that clean look. And you just make sure you get all the excess glue off the outside in a situation like this, where the look is kind of important. If it's something that you don't care if it looks really good, the more glue obviously the better, and I'll probably go back and add more glue to the inside at a later point, just to make sure that bond is really secure. But I will add that obviously to the inside of the piece. So just go around and make sure and if you do this just before it's completely set, after about, your 20 minutes or so, or a little bit less even, it should come off pretty easily without being too super messy. It's just kind of in that in-between state of, glue and a solid there. So, all right, that looks pretty good. I think everything's on there square and it's pretty set. So I'm going to go ahead and apply the clamp and make sure it stays put and has some pressure on there, just to make sure that bond is as good as possible and as tight and secure as possible. And it's good to have some C clamps around, or some sort of clamp. I have quite a few different types and they always come in handy. So I got this at Ollie's. They were too expensive. I think it was like $5, and I really like them. And the rubber on the edges is nice, so it doesn't mess up your piece or whatever you're working on. We're gonna go ahead and let this sit here. I'll probably let it sit for an hour or so, and then I'll go ahead and take the clamp off, take the piece apart, like in two halves, to make sure it didn't get into that crack, so I can still take it apart and paint it when I need to. And then you just want to make sure you give it that 24-hour cure time before you do anything else with it. So you just can leave it set there and don't move it or mess with it or try to work on it really anymore until it's completely set and cure. And that's basically how you apply a two-part epoxy. I hope that helped you guys out a lot. I hope you enjoyed this. If you like this video, please let me know in the comments. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments, and I'll try to do more stuff like this in the future when I'm working on a project and I see something I think will help you guys out, a tip, something that I didn't know about, when I first started, and I really didn't know the correct way to use a two-part epoxy when I first started. I didn't know you were supposed to apply it to both sides. that's something that I've learned, and I wanted to share it with you guys. And I'll share more things like this with you guys in the future, and do more mod tips and what have you. So thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate your viewership. As always, peace out.